Hi everyone, and welcome to Neuro Digest, courtesy of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons Africa, where we bring you stories from across the continent of Africa with focus on neurodevelopmental disabilities, caregiving, their journeys, the stories, the highs, the lows, what we've experienced, and everything you would like to know, from professionals to parents to autistic persons, persons with cerebral palsy, the neurodiverse spectrum in full. So stick around and let's take this to the next level. So today I am having an awesome guest who's been an advocate for special needs for a very long time, and that is the chair for Differently Talented Society of Kenya, Alice Mundia. Karibu, Alice.
Thank you so much, Sylvia.
It is an honor to finally have you. You know, when we were having the TV show, we didn't have enough seasons when COVID came now to continue with conversations. And now that we've changed the story and now we're doing podcasts, both on our YouTube channel and on Spotify, it is awesome to finally have the conversation.
Wow.
So today, Alice, we will be diving into the history of disability in Kenya. Because you've been there, what, 10 years?
Yeah, for slightly more than 10
More
years
than
now.
10 years.
Since
Okay.
2010.
So introduce yourself.
It's been quite a journey.
Introduce yourself. Why did I choose you to be the one to tell us about the history? So let our viewers get to know a bit about Alice.
Thank you so much. My name is Alice Mundia, the chairperson of Differently Talented Society of Kenya, and also a mother to a 19-year-old autistic young adult.
18.
19.
19. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm just starting teenage, so trust you me, that is a hats off.
Wow. So it's been quite a journey.
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey, yes.
Now, Ebu, tell us, for you, since if he's 19 now, that is in the early 2000s when
Yes.
you gave birth to your son.
Yes.
So for today, we will not get into your personal journey, but we will be having you again to tell us that. But in the state of, for how we met actually with Alice,
Yeah.
is in the corridors of advocacy.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, so in the disability space we have forums where we go championing for the changes that we want to see and we contribute to what should be befitting to our children. Remember, for our children, they're not verbal, so it's not like every other disability where you have the person who's on a wheelchair coming and telling you, this is what I want. The verbal autistic children and young adults are very few, and because of the nature of autism and that social interaction challenge, you find we don't have many. We have like 2 or 3 right now in our country who are advocates. So the journey has just been done by organizations for persons with disabilities and also by caregivers. And as one of the key startups, Alice is here with us today to share with us how this journey has been.
Wow.
Yes. So what did it start for you?
Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
I think my advocacy journey began somewhere around 2010.
Okay.
And this was like 2 years after my son was diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the first 2 years were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They were definitely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
As I tried to navigate between therapy, occupational therapy at Kenyatta National Hospital, getting to learn what autism was at that point in time, you know, Googling, you know, a lot of checking out what is happening online, you know, what is happening across the globe, interventions. And I think that time my son was in a school somewhere in Buruburu, and that is where I met a gentleman who was called George. And I remember George mentioning about Autism Awareness Kenya. And so I attended the first meeting at Braeburn. That was in 2010.
Hey, you guys used to
You can
posh
imagine.
areas. My friend Braeburn. Okay.
You can imagine. And that organization was more professional led. Because I remember our secretary was Trixie Pujo, and we had Puja Panessa of Kaizora, but our chairperson back then, Sospita, was also a caregiver.
Okay.
So I remember when I attended that forum the first time, that's when I got, of course, to interact with other caregivers and to actually meet the professionals back
Normally it feels like a light bulb moment, like I am not alone, you know, the first time you go and you're like, oh, actually there are other people. Because it's a very lonely journey, I have to say.
Yes, it is.
The minute you get your diagnosis and then you're just trying to figure out where do I go from. Then you hear words like occupational therapy, speech, things you've never heard before. Neurologist. I was like, I just knew a neurosurgeon because of that book for Ben Carson.
Yeah.
But then now when I was being told on my side that you need to see a neurologist, I'm like, who? Again?
For what?
You know, for what? It's autism. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So those days, I think there was very little awareness and advocacy back then. And I remember meeting the professionals, getting to ask questions, and I kind of like just felt at home. And I remember we were moving towards April, the Autism Awareness Month in April, and they were organizing for and the annual event.
Oh, they had an annual event.
Yes, they used to have an annual event back then. And we used to do a lot of awareness raising across the shopping malls in Nakumatt back then. Like 3 days, would spare 3 days in the month of April to do awareness within the shopping malls, talking to customers coming into Nakumatt.
How did people receive you? I can imagine at that time, if it's still a struggle now, that's like 13 years ago.
Yes.
Why even people listening to you?
It was very hard, and people were asking so much questions, and they also they were really just taking flyers and
yes, that's what take out, just give me a go.
Of course, people were disinterested, but you would also get caregivers who were coming in to show, of course, family members of persons with autism. And back then, I don't think there was any. There was the only autistic self-advocate back then was Nani of Walking Autism.
Okay, I don't know.
My good friend, I remember her name soon enough. So there were very few autistic self-advocates then. And I remember now during that time we had an AGM. And
there was even an AGM.
Yes.
I think if you're talking of 2010, that was when I was giving birth to Andrew. Imagine. So you guys were preparing the way for us who had not even did not have an ounce of an idea. So
and that's when I became a volunteer assistant treasurer at Autism Awareness Kenya. And I would say that.
And it's always voluntary service,
yeah,
right?
It's always voluntary service.
So how do you balance voluntary service and raising your child?
I can tell you that advocacy is not easy. I think it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, when you have to volunteer your services, you have to give your time. You have also to give your time also to reading and acquiring new information.
Yes.
Attending workshops, accessing online materials, accessing online workshops, because when you're dealing with caregivers or autistic self-advocates, definitely you need information.
Yeah, because when I started also, I remember it was not easy. You're trying to learn. For me, I went to the UK first to just interact with the systems. I did my research out there, benchmarking, talked to my brother in the US, what goes on. But most of my insights came from the UK because they're one of the best, standards that we have when it comes to social protection. And also ideas visiting the school. I talked to actually the people who changed the narrative in the UK. So like it was God was sending me, because I was in a place where I didn't know what I want to do with my life. I was very scared. When you start getting that midlife crisis when you get to 35. So I went there and I was talking, and everywhere I went actually, funny enough, the good thing with God is He will send you where He wants you to be.
Wow.
I was running away from my stress and depression and everything here to go just spend some time to clear my head, because I'd lost two very close friends of mine and I felt like I was the next one. So I was like, I need clarity, because my system, my work, my graphic design business, I felt like nothing made sense anymore. When you're seeking your purpose. And everywhere I went, I found someone about disability, everything. Then my sister has a child with Down syndrome. So it also gave me an insight on exactly, because now he was at least more grown. And I was trying to understand like the operation, the procedures, how are they in school. So I went to his school, I was playing mommy to him for a while. So I got that first hand, like seeing the way they do their IEP. So that's where I got my insights. But when you come back home, even getting meetings with the ministries was like homework.
Yeah.
I tell you, my friend, You go, you sit, you're sent here, you're sent there. Nobody knows anything. It's like disability, and for the neurodiverse, it's something like, we don't have time for that story. That's someone else's business. So we chose to make it our business, right?
Yeah.
So, and like I say, not for the faint-hearted. There are those days that you just feel like, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
Do you go through those days? Those days I'm like, what did I put myself into? Because I'm like, I have my own child.
Yeah.
Can I just focus on my child and move on? Because it is also a job other than not being for the faint-hearted is not really appreciated. I don't know if you've had such moments where the demand from the people you're representing feels like whatever you're doing, they look at it like it's not enough.
Yeah.
Yet at the end of the day, for you, you're looking at all I have put in, because the results are not overnight.
Yeah.
I am sure the results are not overnight. And when we are going for these meetings, like where we met, I think what was the first time we met, by the way? I remember it was a meeting, but it was...
In
Kasarani.
There was, I think it was in 2019. There was some discussion going on.
Actually, that's when I started my advocacy.
Do you know whether it was around statistics or the upcoming...
Yes. That it was about
census or something.
Exactly.
Yes. The Washington set of questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then at that time, I was not as loud. I was a bit quiet, and then just taking in information. So I was like, sometimes also it depends on how you connect with someone. So I was like, you felt so warm and like a mother figure to me. It was like, this is someone we're in the same boat, the same issues, So I was like, this one we can relate, and we're in the same boat. Yeah. So now after autism awareness and all the AGMs, is it still there?
It's been some years since then, and Autism Awareness Kenya, I think, slowed down a bit because, of course, it was professionally driven and caregiver driven, but of course, the various professionals also retreat also to their own individual consultancies. And caregivers also, so much changes over time. Not everyone wants to continue with advocacy and awareness raising. So somehow the organization just slowed down.
Funny you say that. You know what someone actually told me when I started? We'll give you 3 years.
Yeah.
We'll see if you'll still be there. I'm like, why? And I'm like, no, we've seen so many people walk in. This was actually at a government office. Yeah. We've seen so many of you walk in here, and within a short time, they all either burn out or they just disappear. So yeah, we'll just give you time. I was like, oh, challenge taken, Because sometimes I think there is that drive, like, because what we're doing, Alice, actually, in hindsight, if you look at all the things we're doing, sitting in these meetings, trying to guide government, trying to guide policy.
Yeah.
Is it for our children, really? Your child?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
A lot that is happening now is going to bring in results 10 years, 5-10 years from now.
So we're doing this for the future generation. For the mothers who don't even know they're going to give birth to an autistic child, or a mother who's given birth, their child is autistic, yet they don't know, they don't have a diagnosis. Those are the people we are fighting for.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did DTSK start?
So after Autism Awareness Kenya, I remember during that period of time, I was also busy in school, and so it reached a point where I was not giving enough, to Autism Awareness Kenya. And I remember now we came together as caregivers and started like a WhatsApp group in 2015, in September 2015, and a few professionals, and because of the
WhatsApp was there.
That's when WhatsApp.
2015.
Yeah, that was 2015.
It feels like it feels
November.
Like to be just the other day.
Like yesterday. So I remember there was a lot of conversations. Like you'd see 200 messages in one day.
Yeah.
Caregivers asking questions after questions. And I remember because I had sat in with a lot of professionals across the board, from educationists to Trixie, who is a counseling psychologist and also very knowledgeable on autism matters, to Pooja, who is a BCBA, So I had sat with a lot of professionals, and I also realized that I also had a lot of information to share with the caregivers. And I remember we would share until we asked ourselves, how do we then transit from just a WhatsApp group to an organization? And that's when in May 2016, we formally registered DTSK as a society. And by the time we were registered, we were like 3 WhatsApp WhatsApp groups. And right now, DTSK, in our WhatsApp platforms, we have almost 1,000 autistic persons and their caregivers. Yes, which is quite
that's
quite
that's
handful.
that's a handful. Like so many messages. If that was 200,
yes,
how many are you now having at this point?
I also think over time, what is happening is there's a group of caregivers who kind of like feel sorted. You know,
they get comfortable.
They're kind of like comfortable. They've learned a lot over the years. Yes, and only ask just one question that like, how will my son transit?
Yeah, that
journey.
Now
a young adult. So those are the kind of questions the older caregivers now just ask 1-2 questions. But once in a while you find that the younger parents are coming in and they also have so many questions.
So it's like a mentorship thing.
It's a
so
mentorship.
At least if the new ones come in, you find someone who's there and then you can have the conversation. And
Yes.
And then now you can ask your questions. And the thing of having this, at least we're embracing technology to support each other. So I'm imagining back in, before all of this technology things, you're in your own house, you have no idea what is going on. You just walk the journey. And I think that's why back in the days guys used to be locked up. Because you can imagine a hyper child.
It used to be, I think, it must have been very difficult. And you can imagine now, we are talking about this and we are within a bigger city, the city of Nairobi. You can imagine someone down there in Turkana, somebody down there in Nyeri, somebody down there in Kericho, or even Kisumu.
So what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I know us guys have the right, and it's not easy to even get guys to support us, you know, when we're organizing. Because when we look as parents, when we're looking at this, us guys in the city, we look at the ones who are uko mashinani, and we're coming together. I remember like last year, you guys did Migori and Nyeri and Nairobi, right?
Yes.
But then, what challenges do we face? Yes, we've had meetings. I know we usually sit in consortiums and in forums where we give our inputs, and we get first-hand to guide other professionals and other people in disability space, because I can attest to like the time we were doing the budget, and when you listen to contributions and you're just like, that won't work for us. You know, it just won't. Because even sometimes when I look at the at the council, the benefits that are there, and I'm like, my child will never, you know, it's like a 50-50. Those benefits, they might not drive. So
the scholarship
program. The scholarship, yes. As we are more in the, if you don't do the early intervention, we won't get there. So those are some of the policies that we keep fighting when we are not fighting, but just we're advocating to see that people get to understand neurodiversity, people get to understand those with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And at Annie I know equity is the key thing we are fighting. Not equality, because equality is what is there right now. You're saying, oh, the rest of the world can drive, so we want to make it easy for you to drive, so we give you the fact that you won't pay tax, so it's easier for you to acquire a car. Well and good. But I might not even pass the driving test as a person who's neurodiverse. You see? So what other option is there? Every time I always talk about that parent with a child with cerebral palsy, and the fact that maybe as a parent, getting that car as early as possible makes my movement for therapy, all that. Can you imagine how they carry their children going for therapy? Public transport, the way it is a hassle. Maybe I can take a loan and get a car and it makes my mobility high. But then our laws state what? That until that child is 18, then they can apply. You're not helping me. By that time, I've broken my back, I've given up, or,
and probably that child is not in gainful employment.
Exactly.
Because of the high support needs. Then what next? You know,
those
would they benefit from tax exemption? Of course, we definitely know that this is a spectrum, and there are those who will be able to get into gainful employment. But what of the large majority also?
Because the majority
require therapy, they require, you know, all these supports.
So we are hoping that all this, that from what has been done there, the work that you guys do at DTSK, when we are coming in together in all other organizations, and hoping that we all have the same vision. Let me touch on a very, very, very delicate matter. Someone had said the lack of unity in the space of those people who are championing for disability could be one of the challenges of their not going far. Do you agree with that? How has your experience been?
To a large extent, yes. But remember that we all find ourselves in this space. So meaning that when we started off, and I would say like for DTSK, when we started off, we were in that caregiver pity situation where we are talking about diapers, anticonvulsive medication, therapy. Then, as we transitioned as an organization, we realized that we needed to link up with others and could not work alone. We realized that we needed also to change our main goal, not just awareness creation and advocacy, but at the same time we transit also to empowerment of the caregivers and empowerment of the young adults and transition of the young adults into either gainful employment or micro enterprise. So what happens is every organization begins with certain goals and objectives. And so because there's no funding, there's minimal funding, most of these organizations are not able to transition. They, like, I would say, like an organization that begins in Nyeri, a caregiver small support group, they will continue meeting, having monthly meetings, having a small WhatsApp group, and of course supporting each other when it comes to food. But since they have zero funding, they will later be able to move into a national outlook. So I think that is how most of the organizations of persons with disability have been formed, all the caregiver support groups, the CBOs on the ground. But now, because we are fragmented, it means that we are not able to also progress well in terms of a national outlook. And I also like what UDPK does, because the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, UDPK, which is our umbrella body, also brings together all of us into one platform, like various organizations of persons with disability, into one platform and one space, and also is able to also organize forums where we can all meet. Like I remember when we met the first time, it was an UDPK meeting at the caucus, caucus on disability rights. Yes. So when we are fragmented, it's difficult for us to be able to push the agenda or to transform policy. But over time, we've realized that we need also to link up with others. DTSA needs to work with Addis Speaks. We need to work together in the neurodiverse space so that when our neurodiverse voice is heard, it's heard in a unified way. And what we've also learned also through our forums with NDI, the National Democratic Institute, the memorandums that we've done.
We've done so many, especially COVID time, right?
Yes, we realized that when we did those memorandums as a group of organizations, a consortium of organizations, that it was louder, it was easier on us, because we are also coming in also with different skill sets.
And also the money, like if you come in together, for that one I know like NDI are the ones who have the funding, but they're not doing it alone. Even us guys, when I come and I say, because remember also as caregivers we're also having different experiences, right? She says the son is 18, mine is 13. My experience, because of the autism being a spectrum, is never the same. So maybe there is a challenge I went through. Like, does your son get conversions?
No.
And mine does. Actually, both of them do. My experience with conversions is something that would be hard for you to represent. So if I stand there and I'm like, this won't work for my child with conversion. So like when we're talking about like setup, and like if we're talking about policy about, let's say, communication, that caution that they have to put, like flickering lights will affect. That will not cross you. As much as, yes, you're a parent to an autistic child. I am a parent of but then there are two different ones. Even when we talk of hyperactivity, Brad is very hyper, Andrew is very calm. They're both autistic, and then the comorbid conditions they all have makes it like such a wide presentation. And this reminds me, like, one of the forums that I am in for cerebral palsy, someone was like, Sylvia, you always talk about autism. Who represents us? I'm like, that is what I'm talking about, that unity. I am actually there so that I can understand what you parents are going through. Then when I'm doing my representation, like let's say now when we are doing the forum, excuse me, if there is no representation from cerebral palsy space, I can stand and say, our fellow neurodiverse. That's what people don't understand. I don't have to have a child with cerebral palsy, because the challenges, for example, my child has epilepsy. 80% of CP parents, that is it. But then the other challenges I will not know unless I'm in your space. Because I remember I was kicked out of a group because of that. I was just like, are you guys even being serious? People lose focus on the bigger picture and think about it is our space. Because you see, you're saying that how many of us are, why is this one here, why is this one? I'm like, and that's how we lose out sometimes. Because you see, when we are representing you and opportunities come and we are able to come and tell you, this is here, people do this, we can guide you to be able to access some of the benefits that are there. So our mindset, I think, as caregivers, even with the different disabilities that are there, we need to just look at it as we have the same challenges.
Yes.
All of us are under neurodevelopmental disabilities. And when we go out to do advocacy, we need to also understand your challenges, then we can represent you. And our job is not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's definitely not easy. And I also realized even in the main disability movement that neurodiversity was never included because there were never voices within the movement.
So we are changing the narrative now with all the things that are being done.
Yes. So I realized that now there are many people who have a lot of interest in neurodiversity. We want to understand what is autism, how can we support, how can we make the classroom setup inclusive, how can we make programs
the
inclusive,
education, the health sector.
Yes, and this talk never used to happen before because we were not included in that space.
Yes.
And I also like the fact that we also have a growing number of autistic self-advocates.
Yes, that's a good point.
Also in the main space.
I know, I'm sure. I always have this, I don't know if you've experienced this, that the moments when our kids goes quiet.
Yes.
Or I'm just like, what the hell is he thinking?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on in his mind?
Back of his mind.
What exactly is it? Like, you know, there you will sit, you'll be like, I've not paid bills, I need to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's one thing I've always said, I wish there was a way I could just get into his mind.
Can you imagine? Like, I see my son, like, sometimes he gets those verbal steams. So he begins by a bit of noise, and then he starts like shouting his thoughts out.
Exactly, and it's there. And you're trying to grab this
then it's like,
that word.
We park. Then I'm asking him, where do you want to go? You want to park? To Nakuru. What do you want to go see in Nakuru? You know, so suddenly I can tell he has this visual picture of exactly what he wants. You know.
Yeah. It's just a challenge of putting
the pieces together to be able to communicate it out. I think it's just a key challenge because of the difficulties that persons with autism experience when it comes to minimalist speaking.
Let me dive into that group setup. I just remembered something about when you set up caregivers, stakeholders forum. I remember we set it up like 2 years ago. We met and we were like, by the way, we can bring the leaders together. And they were like, let's set it up. A short while we had set up. People join, then people start exit. And it's like a place you're having a conversation on your own. And that's where I'm coming from when I'm asking about this. Is there unity? Are we? Because I feel that if Alice is doing transition, I'm doing policy and communication and just general awareness. Someone else, like you see, when us guys did the medical project, and someone else is doing that. Like if we know what everyone is doing,
we leverage.
We leverage, and then we come together. Like you're specializing in this, you're specializing in this. And then this is how we're changing the story.
Like also the passion with Jackie and Jane when it comes to access to justice.
You know, like so we know like when anything to justice I can send to this person. But what I want to see is more of, as much as there is the collaboration, there is that speaking to each other. Because in confidence, some parents are not very happy with some of our groups, how we run it. I know we have our own ways of running things, but then we have to consider why we are there at the end of the day. It's not for our own gain. We're there for the other parents. And also parents, vice versa, for the leaders and the people who have sacrificed their time to go.
Parents also have a lot of high expectations.
Exactly.
What they see is the drama. They see like it's big money here. It's NGO thing.
I don't get paid. I know I'm doing it.
I also don't receive any salary from VTSK.
There is no salary.
I have to volunteer my time and resources. I am serving in a volunteer management committee.
Exactly.
You know. So.
And you're still a parent.
I'm still a parent. I'm still a caregiver.
So you're still going through the challenges.
Yes.
So for our parents, when they're coming at us like, you have not. My friend, we are the same. It's just that I have sacrificed. I've chosen to stand up and bridge the gap on your behalf. I've just decided to, echo out your voice more. So that synergy of an empathy of understanding, because sometimes people can throw words at you and you're just like, oh wow, okay. Lord, carry this cross with me.
As I said earlier, it's definitely not for the faint-hearted.
Not for the faint-hearted. So
advocacy awareness raising is not for the faint-hearted.
It is not.
Because it's taking a lot of your time, your space, your energy. Like I remember there's a week, I was calling my vice chair, Jimmy Karanja, and I was telling him, I have a list of about 15 caregivers who need immediate solutions. Like, one has no anticonvulsants, and one needs anticonvulsant medication, one needs food, one had lost the child, another one also is sick in hospital, the other one, the husband is in hospital, one of our caregivers. So you can find that other than what you're doing, what people are set up there, the mandate of the organization, or the mandate of the group that you're serving, there's also the individual messages that keep hitting your WhatsApp group, and sometimes you don't know what to do. And I remember I kind of like was reaching out, and there's this caregiver who said, anonymously, let me give something. Let me give something. Just, and a few people, and this was what gave birth to, like, we have a small initiative, we call it Tusi Poteane. Like somebody can just disappear because they have issues. So we say Tusi Poteane. If you have like an immediate need, let's get to know this immediate need. And then we can if you can be able to sort it, yes. If you can do, if there's something that we can do,
that's something actually that's very strong. I'm sure you've seen it, like when a parent loses a child.
Yes.
We come together, we support them the little, even if it's 100 bob. But you see, if you're in a group like for 1,000, if everyone does 100 bob, that's like 10 grand.
Yes.
And because social protection does not come to us, and you know how complex ours is with social protection. So we would love for the government to support us, but when we look at the facts, the numbers, there was that debate I'm sure you saw about, so who is more deserving than the other, why should I not
when you look at Jamie says severe disabilities, the assumption is either these are persons with disabilities who are bedridden, who cannot be able to leave their homes without support, who require the caregiver 24/7, but then just look around, autistic persons. How many autistic persons? In fact, the KISA reports on transition to secondary schools, the report they did, I think in 2017, 2018, was that there was no single autistic learner in the schools within the study, the research study. There was not one autistic learner in secondary schools. Are these young adults transitioning? Or are they requiring support from their caregivers in adulthood, and what can we do? Because I think the mindset that has been there traditionally of just lumping people, like you said, MH, the mentally, I don't want to refer to that specific statement, where autistic persons with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, other developmental disabilities were all put together
as him.
And when they say MH, it's like we're saying, we are saying, we cannot really handle you. You just need to go to an MH school, one room, or go to a special unit, when it comes to educational.
And that I think also for us, it's like a blocker when you're just told your child is being put in the MH standing for mentally handicapped. And you can imagine how that makes you feel as a parent, know. And these are some of the derogatory words that when we're doing awareness, we want to, script. Or things like, oh, that one is mentally retarded.
Yes.
I'm like, seriously.
These kind of statements that are not also in conformity with the law, with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So you find that because of putting them in one basket, without recognizing that they have strength, they have unique talents, they have unique needs, they have aspirations, they also want to get into gainful employment like everybody else. So I think traditionally, we were still talking about the traditional setup, is there were no mechanisms of having them transition
at all. It was just
seamlessly.
Stay here, learn one skill, which is just bidding and matchmaking.
Yes.
And that's it. And if you can do that, yay! Yet, God is not unfair, right? Because I'm sure every special needs child has that thing that they're very, very good at.
They're very good at.
Very good. But we do, our systems recognize that? I don't think so. Do they put in the correct policies to be able to get that out of the kids? Because you can imagine, like what you were saying about, if you look at the scholarships, it's all secondary school. So how do you expect our children to get to secondary when we don't give them the proper basic education?
Yes, early intervention.
Exactly, and early intervention, because they go hand in hand. Because someone was telling me like, oh, so are you guys like one of our projects? Is it education or health? I'm like, it's both. I'm like, how is it both? I'm like, for our kids, it has to be both.
Education has to be supported with therapy, has to be supported with play, has to be supported with dietary interventions.
All those things. So you cannot split it.
It's a combination of things, combination of interventions.
And you can remember last week in the forum when I stood up and said, like, ask us.
Remember, NITA trains for the labor market.
Okay.
So it's more skills based rather than education based, because NITA is not an educational institution. It's an institution under the Ministry of Labour that actually trains for the labour market and does skills upgrading. So we found it very ideal because most of the skills will be practical based. So they've done very well, and they've gone for, as I said, they've gone for industrial attachment in various institutions, and we've also been able to do a lot of awareness raising within those institutions. And hopefully we'll also have a lot of autistic self-advocates
coming out of it.
Yes, coming out of it, and young adults with developmental disabilities.
And did that
who were just in their space before.
That's 360. So even the attachment, they go together with their support person.
Yes. Okay. They go together with the support person, and it's NITA that places them. Because it's the body that is also charged with matters related to industrial attachment. So meaning that they are better placed. They actually place them into those
How many people
institutions. So far, the team was 33. 3 of them could not fit into NITA. They are young autistic adults, but with interest in music and DJing. So the 3 went to Talanta Institutes. So the team NITA is about 30. Yes, that comprises of the young autistic adults and their caregivers. So
must they be under DTSK for them to qualify?
This was a pilot program, and it was funded by the Australian High Commission. So we will be able to document it, and hopefully others will be able to leverage on it, because this is a program that can be replicated across the country.
I think that's something
in various counties.
Because even the government can take it up.
Yes, this is something that even the Ministry of Labour
can
take up, because it's one program that allows the young adults who have been left behind in the past and seem like they cannot transition into gainful employment. It is actually allowing them to not just acquire skills, but also interact with their peers in an inclusive setting. So awesome. Many of them coming from the special units, and also, of course, coming also from private special schools, and have never interacted with neurotypical peers, and finding themselves in an inclusive setup, with youth around the same age as them.
I always say one of the things when we're doing advocacy, when you're asking people where they expect our children to go when they don't, because there is no special world where they're going to go, right? They have to come back into the community. But the minute we don't include them, even from the basic things, so what are we trying to say, you know? Where will they be going? Because you see, like when you're asking, there's no transition to secondary, where do they go? How many technical institutes are there?
Yes.
Trust you me, I have the list. It is a shame.
And if you go to the educational based.
Yes.
They are not
this one it's just education based, and very few. And the other thing that I find that we have gaps in is like actually in the general public schools.
Yes.
The special units are set up aside, like Wale. It's not in the plans. The way they're like, class 8 have to get this, the teachers have to achieve this, and even hold them accountable. How many hold their special needs teachers accountable? Even the number of how many students they don't know. Ask any head, I can bet you they don't know what is going on. I have gone around in our advocacy journeys, and that is the same story. You'll be told, oh, there is the head of the special unit. Ask them those questions. I'm like, and we're talking about integration in schools. We're talking about inclusive education. And you don't know the numbers of your children who are being integrated into the mainstream. Anyway, that's why we're talking about all this advocacy, and it has to keep moving, and the conversation has to go.
CBC was going to cure this, but now you see also in CBC also, this the KIPSEA exam, and there's also the KILEA exams for the intermediate exams for
How many make it to KIPSEA?
Very few, because I think
So the higher you go, you drop.
The challenges we also have is the issue of assessments, the EACs, the education
we don't
assessment.
have how many EACs. Do you know
resource
how much?
centers?
Let me ask. How many? We have one EAC in Nairobi, right?
Yes.
How many? Roughly, I wish we had such a report of special needs learners who need that assessment to get into school.
Yeah, because I think assessment has also the staffing of the educational assessment resource centers has also been a key challenge. In Nairobi, the most common ones are St. Anne's and also the most common ones are, but I think they are around 6 or something. But I think the staffing issues has made it difficult.
I only know 2 people actually.
Yeah.
When it comes to
there
staff,
are only 2 people. There are only 2 staff I think within Nairobi.
And then apart from that, we have Kise now.
Yes, and now Kise.
But now Kise is getting overwhelmed because you see now everything is falling.
Yes, and mostly now they are doing more functional assessment. I think the assessment is also a key challenge because remember that these learners are on a spectrum. So there will be learners who can be able to transition, and also even currently without the full implementation of inclusive education, there will be learners who can actually be able to transition and be integrated into the mainstream schools and move towards the academic pathway. But probably that is not happening happening so well because of the assessment.
But you see, even with the assessment, now my other challenge is when we are having JSS, the setup we have for JSS.
Yes.
Why don't we have a similar one when we're like, okay, special education, after that, either KIPSEA and
or
Kilea one, and we say, okay, this one, the pathway is vocational. Because you see, in the same institution, you only have one special unit.
Yes.
And that is where everything is. Because when I look back in hindsight, I'm like,
now the special units is both a mix of age-based and stage-based. So meaning you can find a 7-year-old and a 20-year-old
in the same class. That is the setup. So if the
young adult starts having a bit of teenage and behavior issues that come with teenage,
and then they are with the young
they are with the 80-year-old in the same class. Then you also, of course, call the mother. Those stories from the caregivers, you call the mother and say, this guy is not fitting in. I call that tabia mbaya. That's the challenge also I have sometimes with the special units. Because of course it's both. It's not really age-based. It's stage-based. So meaning all of them are in that one.
But the good thing is, if now our education system is taken seriously,
it will be both age-based and stage-based.
So you have within the special unit now. And this is something when we are having, because our first key pilot school was Kasarani Primary.
Yes.
And what we're looking and having a conversation is, we separated the classes so that you're able to have the skill-based, the age-based. But then now, let's go back to the other root problem. You give me 2 teachers. Now they're splitting themselves across all the students in there. Because yes, we have done, as an organization, we've split it for them. This is how it's supposed to be. But then the staffing issue, because it's a government school, comes from there. Like during transition, now one got promoted. There was a lot of shifting of teachers. One got promoted. The next one is retiring in a very short time. Yet there is no person who has been posted. So how are they supposed to come, start teaching? Remember, when we're talking about individualized education plans, that means they're supposed to come, meet the student. This is where they are. This is where do we have even those things? And that is where the standardization needs to come.
I know KICD it's in the process of developing an inclusive education handbook that is inclusive of all learners. But I still think that the in-classroom setting, there's still a lot that needs to be done in readiness for inclusive education. Definitely, I think we are having this conversation now. 10 years down the line, we'll be sitting and be like, wow, what's happening?
And that's what advocacy is all about.
That's what advocacy is about.
That is what we might not benefit from. For me, let me tell you the challenge I'm having right now, because you've gone ahead and you've passed this. And I know in your own side also there is the challenge of when we're having our one-to-one, parent to parent. Because this is a conversation we have, one parent to another. That's what Neurodigest is all about. So I'm at that stage where we are now 13.
Yes.
We have not acquired fine motor skills to be writing.
Yes.
Sometimes when we see the way people say, oh, my child can write, their name can do mathematics, I'm like,
so great.
What are we ever going to get there? So I'm in that point, I'm feeling like it's a new navigation journey. What do I do?
Yes, yes.
And I think we will have a sitting to discuss that thing of transitioning in detail, the parenting side of it after today's conversation is on vocation, so let me hold my thought. But
Yes.
all in all is like, as parents,
Yes.
where do we get the guidance to know that from this stage, if these are the things you look forward to, if your child can go either
Yeah.
to vocational training,
Yeah.
or do we continue spending money in the classroom
Yeah.
when it looks like it is like, and then there is this issue that comes, my child is a good artist, my child is a good singer.
Yeah.
I've ever gone to ask a music school if they can take us. Either they will say, no, we cannot take him
Yeah.
because he's a special needs child, or no, it is too expensive for me as
Or
a
they
parent.
require a certificate to be able to enter into
Exactly.
this specific institution.
So we have
When we were doing assessment, by the way, for NITA,
Mm.
we also have encountered those challenges.
Mm.
The preparedness. Like, you will find a 24-year-old and you're asking the parent, what is he good at?
Mhm.
Then the parent is like, wow, let me call
That's
the
a good
dad.
question. Or let me call the teacher.
Let me call the teacher. Let me call the sibling. Is it IT? I'm not sure he loves touching the phone. And one of the key challenges also we have is the preparedness for transition.
Mm.
Are the schools preparing the young adults to transition? Because transition is supposed to happen when the child is somewhere around from the age of 8.
8.
By the time they get to 12.
But you see the
But
challenge,
now-
let me challenge you on that one,
Also
Alice.
is true.
At 8,
Yes, yes.
this child, let's look at the chrono. There is the age, and
Yes.
then there is the mental age, then there's the
Yes.
chrono age. Right now, my child is 13, but if I look at his body is 13,
Yes.
fully 360. If I look at his mental age, I'm seeing more of a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
not even fully 5-year-old,
Yeah.
like a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old in
Remember,
one.
at 8 years, you are concentrating on the therapies, the
Exactly.
interventions.
Yes.
You are still struggling to discover even what autism is.
I'm still
Because the
struggling even to
diagnosis
find a
also happens
school.
late.
Exactly.
You're struggling to get a school where he can be accepted and he can be placed. So transition is supposed to happen early, yes. But then transition is not happening.
But is it a
Any
fact?
preparedness for transition is not happening.
Now,
So-
this one is where now the African context comes.
Yes.
Because there is the international standards that state these things, but then we are in
We
Africa.
are in Africa, yes.
In Africa, we are behind in so many things, and that's what we're trying to do with our advocacy. And like we said, Neurodigest is about conversations, Africa conversations
Awesome.
on the facts that are going on and the changes we want to see. And this is something that I've seen across all. I think it's only one school in Ethiopia that I came across that was able to have a one-on-one therapy. So you find this kid's transition is impeccable.
Yes.
I
yes.
walked into a like junior secondary,
Yes,
quote
yes.
unquote, and my task was identify the autistic child. And remember, these guys learn English and they learn Arabic.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, for me, being a parent, then those things I know and
Yeah.
interacting a lot, I'm
Yeah.
able to pick up those things. But do you know it was a tough one. They've been integrated in all mannerisms, everything. There's nothing as the way
Yes.
here we are saying one day he's there, the next day he's in the special unit.
Yes.
No, that child is in that integrated setup.
Wow.
And the therapy
They
sessions,
provide the therapists, they
they're
provide
from zero.
behavior interventions in the classroom.
Everything,
The classroom setting,
is
the
perfect.
support,
The
materials
support
in
is
the
there.
visual aids
Let me tell
and
you,
the visual shades.
so from
Wow.
equipment to set up, but of course it's a private school,
Yeah,
it's not a government school. Disclaimer, and that's
Yeah.
where we hope for. So the good thing with such things is now we're able to benchmark.
Yes.
And the one thing that I saw that was exceptional that we lack,
Yes.
when you enter the school, it is one-on-one therapy. One therapist, like the whole day, it is therapy and playing. Like, you know, those therapy activities that teach you. So you find fine motor skill comes, everything
Yeah.
comes, then they space it out. The next level is 1 to 2. Like two students, one therapist. You know, so because that intense one. So they start
Yes, yes.
very early, because those were 3-year-olds when I walked in, were 3-year-olds, etc. And you find it very, very intense. Then now as you go up, then you're becoming independent.
Yeah.
And then now you're being transitioned now into the
Wow.
general school.
I love that because that early intervention, that early intervention is very key. They say that the brain is neuroplastic,
Exactly.
neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
That you flex it, you
And you-
flex it,
exactly.
you flex it, and it forms a neural pathway.
But remember,
Anytime
that's
it's about
also age.
But now when it's
age-based.
age-based,
Yes.
you know, early intervention is very, very key.
Mm.
Because if you provide therapy at that age, education, those other interventions and support, and a bit of reasonable accommodations within the classroom setup, I am just imagining that
how far we can go, right?
You know, this child will be able to learn a lot of skills,
Yes.
and you're able also to keep him in, like our children have a lot of difficulties in attention, the issues of attention deficit, sitting in one position, and also behavior issues in the classroom.
But like you said, all these are things that the brain has been trained to. Because you see, by the time I figure out what is going on, and even right now we see a lot of the ADHD being a comorbid. Yes. But by the time you're realizing, I got my ADHD, I've always, self like, this looks like ADHD from what I read. But the actual diagnosis, we got it last year because it was becoming too much.
You've seen the sensory, like the sensory classrooms, where you find like, like it's both therapy
and sensory,
and sensory oriented, the lighting, the classroom setup, and the learners are visualizing and learning, but at the same time therapy is happening. They are actually on that.
But how many institutions are looking into that?
We look forward to that day.
Maybe we can actually start our own with all this information that's flowing from our experiences. Wow. Maybe it will be one solution. So if you're an investor out there and you're looking to get into this space, you can talk to us. I think it's something we are able to do.
Awesome.
So it has been an awesome conversation about advocacy, our journeys, and what we've done as individual organizations, and what we hope to see from partnerships and people coming together to change the narrative for the future. Like we said, all we're doing as advocates for special needs, and especially the neurodevelopmental disabilities and the neurodiverse community, is so that the future is better for those who are coming behind us. Because our children might not be benefiting from all the policy changes and the pushing for all the standardization that we are hoping to see. And today our guest was Alice Mundia from DTSK, and they're doing an awesome job. And of course, watch this space for greater partnerships on changing this narrative and projects that we are hoping to do together moving forward. And I have been your host, Dr. Sylvia Moram with Chabo Akinsiku, and you've been on Neurodigest podcast. And we are hoping that you enjoyed yourself and that you will join us next time. All this has been courtesy of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons, where we champion for inclusion of persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities. So share, follow us on our social media, and learn more. And also remember to light the candle of the next person by letting them know that we are here, and we'll give you all the information that you need so that we can have the vision of an inclusive community coming to life. Thank you, and see you next time.